6 happily surprising things about living in America. I'm looking forward to checking out this video. Obviously, it's my goal on this channel to go to America, but finding out things about living in America. So this should definitely be an interesting video to check out. Just before we jump into it, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button. It massively helps out the channel we're growing. But let's just jump into it and press play.
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to the things that surprise us. Specifically for me, the things that happily surprise me about living in the United States. Now this might seem like a strange video to do at this time while many of us are trapped in our quarantine bunkers, but once we all emerge, I'm excited to start enjoying many of these things very, very soon, even though I didn't get to for the first 26 years of my life. America, today I salute you. Here are 6 happily surprising things about living in the United States.
I'm very interested.
I suppose sometimes, you know, it's the little things in life, or should I say, the litter things in life that please people. And, you know, growing up in a country that is a wasteland, quite frankly, I'm joking, Britain's not that bad. But we do have a tendency just to, you know, throw litter around. And sometimes now, I've been
not that bad.
Back in Britain, since I've left, we've had this problem with fly tipping. And that's where, you know...
Right, so this actually is happening. You see this over the sides of the road sometimes. Sometimes it'll be rubbish. Sometimes it'll be like builder's waste. And yeah, they'll just, in the middle of the countryside, they'll just drop it there because it saves the price of going to like a recycling place or somewhere where you've actually got to pay money to dispose of your stuff. And I know they're coming down heavy on it. If you get caught doing it, there is heavy fines. I'm talking a lot of money. But yeah, it is something that keeps happening lately.
People are dumping their trash. But even minus that, I just got this general sense that Britain was just a bit more littery than America. In America, everywhere's super clean. That's one of the great things about it. You can enjoy the oxygen around you, knowing that it hasn't touched the chewing gum wrapper. This is usually the case, and I'm taking the examples of the places I've lived. This is about 4 different cities at this point, and in each and every one of them, you have very green, very well-kept gardens, very clear sidewalks, although in some cases that could be
looks very nice.
Them. But it's really refreshing to go to the beach here in Chicago and not find discarded chippy wrappers or crushed Coca-Cola cans. Or used condoms.
I can't lie, if you go to the beach, you're going to find wrappers, you're going to find things on the floor. I feel like people just sometimes are too lazy. Personally, I use a bin. If I've got rubbish, I'm going to throw it in the bin. But not everybody thinks like me, and that's the problem. You sometimes get people go away for the weekend to the beach, and they just don't care. Interesting in that photo though, that looked really nice and very, very clean.
Americans on the whole are just better about not littering, and I know that sounds like a generalization of the wild variety, and it makes me sound like a crotchety old man telling people to get off his yard, but at least my yard is clean. I mean, most in Britain are, to be fair. It's mostly the streets, and I should know, I grew up on the mean streets of Grimsby. It was actually a nice area, but you know, sometimes the streets would still be littered with caviar containers.
Caviar?
This one was hugely surprising, especially as a fan of football, or as they say in the rest of the English-speaking world, soccer, because, you know, I'd always sort of understood America to not be truly interested in soccer or football.
That's exactly
and
what
in many respects, this is still true, at least, you know, when things are normal and sport is still happening. America still prioritizes NFL, basketball, hockey, and what's the other one, baseball, above all other sports. And so it was just really surprising to this fresh-faced Brit who came equipped with a soccer ball to find that there were soccer fields aplenty. They were everywhere, even in Anderson, Indiana, right, which is the place that I've lived that had the lowest population. But off the top of my head, I can already think of about 5 soccer fields in that city alone.
Honestly, I don't know how popular it is in America. Is it a common thing that people play in America, or is it not popular at all? I know USA is hosting the World Cup, and that's coming up. Is it big in America, or is it really like not a sport that a lot of people play? That's interesting to have soccer fields. I wouldn't have thought that.
They're very, very widespread, at least in the eastern portion of the United States. I can't speak for the sort of the plains and the Rockies, because can you imagine having soccer fields high up in the mountains? It might happen. If you live in those areas, let me know in the comments below. But I think one of the chief reasons that there are just so many of them is that they're very popular with school-age people. And of course, it is one of the most popular sports in the United States played by women. You've just got to look at the overwhelming success of the US women's national team, who've won at this point about 2.5 million World Cups. England, of course, still waiting on theirs. And speaking of waiting, that brings us on to this. America is known as the land of the free. And I always thought that that was quite weird because, I always considered Britain to be quite free, as in we had freedoms. But then I started to think, well, maybe it comes down to the little things, right? Something I noticed, of course, and I've talked about on this channel, is you can get free refills in any kind of restaurant.
I wish we had
your
that.
sodas.
I wish we had that.
And the same is true of entering public toilets, except you don't drink the contents. Let's be clear about that.
No, don't do that.
What I'm saying is, in Britain, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, public toilets will charge you an entry fee in order to use it.
Yeah.
And I can understand why they do this. It's partly for the upkeep of said public toilet.
Mostly this is in train stations or possibly in shopping centres. And when I was little, it used to be like a 20p. I think it's like a 50p now. It's gone up a little bit. But it is annoying because if you're running through and you need to go to the toilet, you've got no change in your pocket. You can't go into the toilet. But it's for the upkeep of the toilet.
But it's a big problem when you really need to go. Nobody wants to find themselves in a race to find their change versus a race to change their knickers. In America,
So in America, you don't pay at all. There's no toilets where you have to pay to get into.
though I'm sure there are some quirky exceptions somewhere, you never have to worry about that. You just have to worry that people can see you through the crack.
Window
I feel like
screens.
I've mentioned window screens a lot in my videos, but not really in the context of how they've brought me a lot of joy. And that might sound really strange, right?
This come up in a
but
previous
in
video.
England, we never had them. And we also never had air conditioning. So you find yourself in this strange situation,
Air
particularly
conditioning.
on a warm summer's day, of having to open the window just to get some fresh air in. But of course, with that comes some other things. Things like, mosquitoes, which, to be fair, in Britain aren't anywhere near as bad as they are in the American Midwest. Or Big Daddy Longlegs, or bees.
Flies.
Bees can get in the house, and who wants that? Now, bees and wasps
Honestly, flies get in your house and they lay eggs. That's the worst thing that they can do. So I always think these window screens would be amazing to have in the UK.
and things like that are probably the most dangerous things that might get into your house in Britain. So it's not really a huge concern, but it can be an irritation. And it's an irritation that's largely alleviated in the United States by the existence of these window screens. I'm not saying that insects don't get in at all. I mean, I've seen enough ant colonizations in my kitchen.
I don't know why we
that's
don't
not
have them.
true. But
We
I
should
do
have
not
them.
remember the last time I encountered a wasp, a bee, or a mosquito inside my apartment.
Oh, wow.
It just doesn't really happen. But the big revelation that is window screens doesn't just stop bugs from getting in, it also stops a certain somebody from getting out. And I'm not talking about my wife. She uses the door. Now, in Britain, people might be a little less concerned about this because, there's more of an outdoor cat culture there. But my cat, much like the cats of many people in the United States, is very decidedly an indoor cat. And if I want to open the window, as I did today, right, there are occasions.
Wait, is that a common thing that cats are indoor cats in America? That's curious because in the UK, most cats are definitely outdoor cats, but you do sometimes have an indoor cat. But let me know in the comments if you've got a cat. Is it an indoor cat or is it an outdoor cat? I'm very curious about that.
Occasions during spring and autumn when, it's not hot enough for the air conditioning unit and it's not cold enough for the heating, you want to crack a window open, right? And if that were the case in Britain on a lower floor or even the second floor, your cat's gone. And to me, that would be bad because, recently I did have a dream that we lost him at the beach. And I know that curiosity isn't going to kill my cat, but a Prius would. Window screens save lives. Now, once we get the all clear to start en masse leaving our apartments, whether that is by the door or the window, then there's one aspect of America I will never take for granted again, and it's this.
Oh, okay.
Don't get me wrong, we have a fantastic national park system in the United Kingdom, and one, I wished I'd experienced more while I lived there. And the same thing is happening right now as I live in America. I feel like I haven't seen enough of the national parks, or even sort of state parks or state forests and things of that nature. Now, I have experienced one or two, Muir Woods near San Francisco, but I want to see the big ones, I've sold out at this point. I want to do Yellowstone National Park, I want to do Yosemite, I want to do Badlands, all of them basically in a week. Can we make that happen?
No.
Why not?
Because combined they're larger than Britain.
Right. The national park system is amazing, protecting some of the most unbelievable natural settings I've ever experienced.
I definitely need to check out some videos. I've had a lot of people in the comments say to check out national parks. It is definitely something I've got to check out because I am very curious. The size? Wow. So combined, they're the same size as the UK. That's incredible.
Or will experience because, I want to enter the Grand Canyon. That's not a euphemism. So I've already said to the wife, when we get out of this, we're cancelling the Paris trip. even though she's always wanted to do it, so that's a little harsh. We're just going to go out west, you know, pack up our tents and grow mustaches like Teddy Roosevelt. That's me, not the wife. Now, those of you that are new to this channel might not know that I used to do travel videos back in the day. And today, at the top of Ensign Peak,
Oh, wow.
a wasp stung me. But then that, combined with having to work a day job, just got a little challenging. So I put it on hold, but I think now that I'm YouTubing full-time, I might start it up again. I don't mean tomorrow, I mean when we've got the all clearance to go and do this sort of thing.
The people.
This one might be the biggest one of all, hence why I saved it to last, because after all, what is a country without its people? In America's case, it's one big land of unregulated national parks. And I think this one is on the mind because, well, I haven't seen any people except the 1.5 that I live with. And the good thing, I think, that was surprising anyway about Americans and American people is just how nice most of you are. That's if you're not talking about politics or religion or PB&J sandwiches. Of course, there are wild exceptions, and I do mean wild, in any country, and I've certainly seen them here on occasion too. But they are the exception that proves the rule.
I've got to say, in the comments and from the people that I've met since I made this channel, everybody seems friendly. Everybody seems happy. And yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice to have people that are just friendly and happy and for them to be around you. Positivity always leads to more positivity. And that's the way I see it. But yeah, it is nice.
Unlikely as it seems, I just have to look at the comment section beneath my videos. I know, sounds like a mistake, never do that. But mostly it's Americans who comment, and for the most part, they're all really nice. You're all really nice, right?
Yeah.
Most of you. I mean, I ignore the ones that aren't. I have a motto, focus on the flowers, not the weeds. And maybe this is a bad example. A good example would be in real life. Americans are very welcoming, you know, sometimes too welcoming. I've been invited to ranches by people I've never met. It's weird, but it happens. And I think it's just sort of bred into people to be hospitable. There's a lot of hospitality. You often hear of Hoosier hospitality, where I lived in Indiana. You hear of Southern hospitality, an appreciation for other people that goes missing on Twitter. But for the most part, you don't have those kind of interactions in real life, or at least that's been my experience of it. The interactions you have, I think, are mostly very nice. I think of going into shops. I think of going into restaurants. And I know that it's part of their job to treat the customer well. It can be split into two camps. Either you get that really sort of over-the-top cheeriness because they want a higher tip, or it feels very genuine, specifically when you're in a shop and you just strike up a conversation with somebody. It's much easier to do, I think, than perhaps in Britain. We're a little more guarded, I think, about certain things like that.
Yeah.
Wild generalization again, and of course, I'm not saying that Americans are better than British people, but I think it's worth mentioning because if you're coming here and you expect everybody to fall into sort of one of 5 categories, right? Either a seedy boss type from an 80s Wall Street movie, a stoner kid, a surfer dude, they're one and the same, all of the characters from Friends, or Norman Bates from Psycho, then you're going to be disappointed or happily surprised, as I was. That's it for this episode. Thank you for joining me. Let me know in the comments below, specifically if you're not from America, what you were surprised that I was surprised about. And if you are from America, say.
Interesting video, and as it come up before, window screens. Window screens should be a thing in the UK. I cannot understand why we don't have them. But yeah, really enjoyed that video. As always, lost in the pond producing good content. I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button. It massively helps out the channel we're going. But for now, I'll see you on the next reaction.